try to give the salient points of what it means for church to involve in dialogue with Islam. And I will try to do it in a way that Maulana Azad will have some more time to elaborate some of the Islamic perspective to dialogue today. Saint John Paul II in Ecclesia in Asia have mentioned Assisi as the center from which in the modern times Catholic Church and representative of other world religions showed that men and women of religions, without abandoning their own faith, can engage in prayer and work for peace. I think it is very significant and acknowledgement what Franciscans can do and their importance today in the world for interreligious dialogue. And friars all over the world has indeed renewed their commitment for the dialogue marked by the 25th anniversary of the above event in the spirit of Assisi. Likewise, Dr. George Carey, the former Archbishop of Canterbury, emphasized that both religions have a great responsibility for the future of human family. Both are very significant religions and both have to take this dialogue more seriously. In the initial stages of dialogue, Christians all over the world have faced certain kind of resentment, as many of the Muslims were suspicious of Christian desire for dialogue, fearing that there may be some hidden motives in the request for collaboration. As in the modern times, many places Christianity came along with colonialism, and there was fear maybe there is some hidden motives in the modern time. However, for the past 13 centuries, Muslims and Christians have been living side by side in many parts of Asia and Africa, and there is a need of deepening efforts for more collaboration and understanding. As we have heard in the last few days and even today, this morning, that St. Francis of Assisi stands out as a person who, in the age of darkened by crusades, saw areas of convergence between Christianity and Islam, and hence advocated approach of respect and love. All these individual efforts came together in Second Vatican Council, as Roger mentioned this morning, and the Council emphasized, although in the course of centuries there have been many quarrels and hostilities have arisen between Christianity and Muslims, this most sacred council urges all to forget the past and to strive seriously for the mutual understanding. I think that is a very important element, acknowledging that there has been hostility, but beginning for a new time and new age. Second Vatican also emphasized to work sincerely for the mutual understanding and to preserve as well as to promote together for the benefit of all mankind, social justice, moral welfare, and as well as peace and freedom. This is a very important element because my own observation is that in the last 10 years there have been a lot of hostility and even violence against minorities. But at the same time, many new efforts have come for interreligious dialogue. There are more and more people from Islam and Christianity who are working together for dialogue. And Pope St. John Paul II earnestly emphasized this, to consider each day the deep roots of faith in God, in whom also your Muslim fellow citizen believes, in order to draw from this the principle of collaboration with a view to the progress of human amelioration in good, the extension of peace and brotherhood in free profession of faith peculiar to each one. So the emphasis is that it has to start from the fountain of religious strength. And we see that Franciscans all over the world are engaged in inter-religious dialogue. Orders commission, as we heard this morning, service for the dialogue, through seminars in various continents and through 3 books, Life as Dialogue, the Franciscan Ecumenical Vocation, and Dialogue Among Believers as animated trials all over the world. And this is not just a theory. We thus see a result of all these efforts, because trials in various parts are engaged in dialogue. We have heard how the Franciscans of the custody of Holy Land have carried out important work in the field of Muslim-Christian dialogue. We also have seen how in Morocco, Franciscans have been engaged in various kinds of dialogue over the centuries. In Europe, friars have shown great hospitality and fraternal attitude towards immigrants, and among them there are from various religious traditions. The community of Istanbul, we have just heard, and also in Pakistan, we have various forms of dialogue. In Indonesia and in India, which is a significant presence of multicultural and pluralistic context, friars take great efforts in promoting dialogue both with Hindus and Muslims. Friars in the Philippines, likewise in other parts of Asia and Africa, we have heard in our various workshops and interventions how efforts are made for dialogue. Need and importance. There have been always need for dialogue, but in the modern times, especially in Asia and Africa, we see that there are a lot of racial, ethnically, linguistic and religious pluralistic kind of combination. There is no one country which can claim to be Muslim or to be Hindu or to be Islamic country. So this urges not to take the other for granted, not to just take somebody just coming along, but to take the person along with his beliefs seriously. Christianity and Islam have realized dialogue cannot anymore be optional. It has to be part of our existence. And to reject this new possibility of dialogue would be putting oneself in isolation and thus hampering one's own growth, because it is only in relation to people with different thinking, people with different religious, cultural background, that we begin to grow, that we cultivate in ourselves how to live, how to adjust, how to be tolerant of various views. So we see that enlightened leadership in both religions through various encounters have realized that dialogue enables to participate in the realization of God's plan for the world. And as FABC, Federation of Asian Conference of Bishops emphasized. For churches in Asia, dialogue with other religions have helped to prepare the ground for interreligious efforts for justice and peace. This is in a situation where vast majority of people are struggling for basic necessities of life. Dialogue becomes a common effort for working for the betterment of humanity. And also, in various parts of our countries where in the recent time militant and fundamentalism has increased, there has been need to work together for the betterment. Nature and meaning of dialogue in Islam. There are threefold understanding of this dialogue. First of all, to remove ignorance and misconception about each other's belief, and practice and to promote informal understanding and critical appreciation. For a long time, we see in our own country and in many other Islamic countries, what happened is that our religion was understood and interpreted in the perspective of others thinking of our religion. But we feel that with the mass media and various channels coming up, we had the first time the opportunity in the last 10-15 years to talk about our own religion, to be able to clear some of the misperceptions and misunderstandings. And ordinary people who could only have to hear from their own leaders what Christianity is, what Hinduism is, now they have the chance to hear from the mouth of Christians themselves what they believe, why they believe, and how their beliefs have impact on their own life. And this has really clarified, and the threatening and frightening kind of attitude is going, and people begin to appreciate. To work together for common purpose in the society, particularly where human rights, social economic justice and peace, we see a lot of efforts being done both by Muslims and Christians together, not only Christians working for the Christians and Muslims working for the Muslims, but Christians and Muslims working together to help to bring comfort and relief to the people who are suffering. Thirdly, to bring to bear the deeper resources of our respective faith on the basic problems of human existence. We saw some years ago some of the Friday khutbahs would be only talking against Christianity, talking against America, talking against Israel. But in our dialogue context, we begin to emphasize that it will be better that we form people in the Quranic tradition, in the Islamic tradition, so that they may be able to live their religion rather than always making somebody outside as the target and the focus of our preaching. So, in a way, dialogue helps to bring this out, to bring this to realization. If I, as a Christian, know my Bible, I will be able to live by it. If a Muslim knows Quran and Hadith and teaching well and live according to those values, there will be better atmosphere and realization. This has helped to the dialogue, because without dialogue, we can live in our own world without being shown the light of the other side. Content and task. The role of religion is very important in Islamic countries. They would heed what has been told by their religious leaders more easily rather than things coming from the political leaders or others. Therefore, the role of religion becomes very significant. The interreligious dialogue also becomes very important because the process of liberation, the role of religion is one of providing inspiration, prophecy, challenges, and hope in the terms of ultimate. And in a pluralistic society, all religions do that together. We have just heard about the secularization in Turkey. Likewise, no country will be free from the influence of modernity, influence of materialism, consumerism, or the multinational companies bring along their own mode of values. So all the religions have to work together. The tendency still is that we come together for dialogue and we encounter each other only when there are some issues. Something problematic has happened, so we come together. But it has to be more than that. Dialogue has to be an attitude. Dialogue has to be a lifestyle. Dialogue has to be a way of thinking and way of living and a way of looking at the other from that inner perspective of mutually respecting and trusting each other. Dialogue does not mean superficially meeting. It does not mean just greeting on our various feasts. I think that time has gone. Dialogue has to be a genuine dialogue where we respect the other with his own right, respect the other with his own faith, with own conviction, and we are ready to learn and to give. If we don't believe, if we just make our own religion relative and dialogue, I think we will not be able to learn anything or we won't be able to give anything. But it is only in accepting the other with his own rights that we begin to deepen this whole process of interreligious dialogue. Interreligious dialogue has widened and deepened our own religious experience, complement it, clarify and sharpen our framework. But at times, we also experience opposition and contradictions. It is only through dialogue and common work all such matters can be clarified, hindrances overcome, and progress achieved. We cannot deny that there are differences. Closing eyes does not solve the problem. One has to face the problems and have to find a solution to it, and dialogue can only do that. From the Christian perspective, even though at times there are a lot of negative experiences which hinders church leaders and ordinary people, but in spite of that, Church realizes today that dialogue is a new way of being church. Church is called to be a community of dialogue. This dialogical model is a new way of being church. It's not really a Christendom, but it's a church which is sent to live its Christian values in the midst of the world. Vatican II has given the theology of the world. This is the world where we have to witness to what we believe. And to be Catholic in its concern, in its appreciation of the gifts of others, and its readiness to work with others for the world's advanced human and more divine. The model of the Church offers hope that dialogue can be more than a conversation of experts, because that would never be enough. Real people have to dialogue on the actual situation. And we hear in Abjansus where it opens our mind to the situation of dialogue. I'd like to go to different forms of dialogue which we have at present. The dialogue of life, where each and every person encounters the other on the neighbor, they sharing each other's sorrows and joys. Many of the Christians in our country were living in ghetto mentality, but now they are open to various situations and living among the Muslims without much fear. Then we have dialogue of action, where people are collaborating on various social economic issues. Then we have dialogue of theological understanding. I'd like to go to the challenges which are very important, which we face at present with regard to dialogue. This text will be available, can be read later, but I think what is important is so what are some of the challenges? We feel that in the last few years we have been challenged to work together for the formation of laity, because in a country like ours, Pakistan and I think other Islamic countries, it has been very clerical in its formation and understanding. So it has opened up to this understanding, to have better understanding of other religions, because not only your own religion but others. Some of the social political factors are also creating difficulties. Lack of conviction in the dialogue is another important factor. So we see that all of this has challenged, but at the same time we see a lot of positive things have happened. There has been dialogue has advanced, even though much has been done, but I think still there is a scope of a lot of more progress. But dialogue has become a reality, that's very important, and dialogue is becoming a knowledge factor by Islam and Christianity. There is a lot of scope that each day, each moment, each encounter will help to deepen it. Thank you very much.